So hi everyone, my name is Sagar Kakkala, and today we are here for totally new sessions that we are going to build. I'm going to name this as a playlist DevOps in detail with Sagar Kakkala, and these sessions would be only in English. And since these sessions would be uploaded in YouTube, I'll share screen to show how things work here in Sagar Kakkala's world. Uh, Here you just had to remember my name and search Sagar Kakkala in Google, and you'll have my uh, website, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Yeah. And in YouTube, everything is separated by playlists. And here I'll be adding a new playlist for these sessions, like a DevOps in detail. And here, since the Docker is the first tool ever we got, we'll be starting it with Docker. And in this session, we'll be going for basics. And the Docker, we'll be learning only basic here. And once the basics are ready, we'll go for Docker networking and all Docker volumes. We'll go step by step till we're completely clear with Docker. Yes. So since here, since I had already taken sessions on Docker, we'll be using the same code snippets here, but in a kind of overview. And before we start with Docker, let's how Docker works is just a bit of example, how Docker came into picture is, let's say before, let's say you have a system and you built an app on Python 2, and once Python 2 you had built your app, what you did is you want to ship this app, you said this is the app I built, and using this app you're actually transferring this app to test to a QA or someone. And what that guy has is, let's say that guy has something like a Python 3 and a Python 3, or maybe a previous version or something. And this code, you built a code completely dependent on Python 2, and there might be some variables that might be depreciated on Python 3. So what it does is, when you're shipping this app, when you're telling your colleague to check on the app, he says in his system the app does not work. So this created because this is you built an app on Python 2, and his system has Python 3. So this kind of created what do you call, a lot of confusions and a lot of to and fro bags and a lot of time consuming process. So Docker actually what it did was, instead of having a complete system, you could have a base system, where, let's say, instead of shipping the app, you're actually shipping a container built on Python 2. So, even when your colleague try to access this app, so he actually runs the app with already dependencies that you set. So this created a lot of what do you say, a fast way process in deployment. And another thing Docker also addressed is monolithic to microservice architecture. Let's say for any app that I take, maybe let's say the Amazon. Let's go for Amazon. Let's say this entire website is microservices. Think of an example. What monolithic does is your entire code is in a single base, and even if something has malfunctioned, let's say the return and orders feature has been malfunctioned, and this entire app will show you 404 error because everything is dependent on one another. So that's monolithic. And microservice is, let's say, even if the cart feature or the orders feature or even in the account feature, something goes wrong, you'll still be able to use the search functionality or even the address functionality or support functionality. So this actually has microservices. So each feature or each component in one what do you say, in each container you could deploy. So that Docker addressed microservices and monolithic, and also a single app dependency. And also another thing that you call, let's say, in VM, before you used to have VMs as well, and there was actually a kind of dependencies it removed. I wasn't sure the exact wordings of it. I'll later check, maybe in the next session I'll tell you the exact wordings of that. Maybe now, let's say Docker has revolutionized the complete, like the start of like DevOps, because instead of having a complete system to run the app, let's say if you want to have your local system to run this application, you need a lot of other let's say components that get. But Docker, what it does, it containerized completely. Let's say you are building an app that's on runs on Python. You just need to install Python on a container and a base mission. That's it. A base mission where you could run your commands. You don't need a complete systems. So as a result of this, the complete mission or container, like you have it as small size as like 20 MB to 30 MB. And these are easy to actually even transfer between the teams as well, and to run the applications as well. So this is another revolution that Docker has done. Maybe like we'll understand this the demo as well. Since like we last time I had used AWS, if you remember AWS EC2, but from these sessions like we could use Code Cloud free labs like which are actually free. So I was just like going for Docker. And here if you see, I would advise like going through these sessions as well, which I explained in detail like how Docker works. And like since the Docker is already installed here, so I'm not going on these installations command. And these installations I had to taken from official document itself. And if I see the Docker version, yeah, I'm just like using here. Where is this? Okay. And before we go on installing Docker and other things, I'll show a bit of context of like how we use Dockerfile here. Let's say like before this Docker session, like within the DevOps with Sagar Kakkala session itself, what we did was, I would recommend to go through these sessions. What we did was like we took a React application and we actually installed, let's say we actually installed Node.js. And once the Node.js is installed, we installed npm. And once npm is there, like we installed npm install React scripts, like which actually gets all the packages, and then npm run build, which actually builds a build folder. As you could see, one second. This is the build folder that actually formed. It's more like the build folder is nothing but a kind of, one second. Ah, okay, okay. Yeah. Build folder is nothing but a kind of your package, let's say like code and everything is packaged inside that build. So that's what we did here. And like we had installed Nginx, and from Nginx like we had deployed whatever the build folder that is formed in the previous code, we had deployed that in Nginx, and we had run our Nginx, and post that our app was visible. So that's what we did. And in the same way, like we are going to like Dockerize this, like if you want the same your application to run in Docker. So that's what like we'll do now. Okay. And before that, so if I go for day 2, so if I go for a day 2, like this is the code I'm using, let's say. Maybe I'll just show you in the local. Okay. Maybe like because it takes time to run. Let us first run this itself here and I'll later explain the code. So now I'm actually using Code Cloud Free Labs itself because it has Docker already installed. So that's why I'm not installing Docker. So git clone. Yes, because inside the repo itself, I had mentioned the Docker file. Yeah, I'll explain this Docker file. And inside the repo itself, I had given the Docker file. So I'm running this Docker file directly. Mhm. Because like if actually if you don't want to have Google Dockerfile like by default search for the file name, mm, searches for the file name Dockerfile. searches for the file name Dockerfile here, a kind of like if it does not find it, like it cannot build. So, but here, since I had mentioned it as like gold Dockerfile, I had to specifically mention which file is the Dockerfile. So here I mentioned like this would be actually the Docker image name. So React Docker would be the image name. Minus T stands for tag. So I'm building a Docker image with name React Docker file, and I'm telling it it's the gold Docker file, and dot is the present directory. Like the code is completely in the present directory. So so this is the directory which it builds. So it checks for package.json, package log.json, source files, and other things. So while this is building, I'll just show like how it works on local so that like you'll understand like how Docker file is written. Okay, where's my Visual Studio? Hmm. So once I had cloned the code, okay, let me open this. Stop me if you guys were not understanding anything in between. Um, okay, did not open, I guess. 1 second. Okay, it opened. Oh, okay. Okay, so we're in day two, and as you could see, like this is the file which is actually the repo here. And here the gold Docker file, I'm not using Docker file since I'm going on installing. Mm, mm, mm. And here actually I'm going to build this app. So here as you could see, like there are no React scripts. So when I give, mm, mm, mm. Okay, let's check in this. What happened? Failed request. Node 18 is not there. Gold Docker file. Mm, 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 mm. Actually built it in the morning. I don't know why it doesn't work now. From node 18, node 18 is there or not? Let me see. Okay. Hmm. Now if I run npm run build, yeah, as you could see, a build folder is formed here. And if I give like serve minus s build, this is actually without nginx. Okay, I think like okay. Install -g server. Yes. So I installed serve, like just a server, and like server is my built. And now my app runs on localhost 3000. Maybe I'll check this later. So localhost 3000 is like how this is actually built. Uh, till here it's clear. Maybe like the manual process is clear, right? Like serve minus s built. Yes. Maybe I open two
Yes.
tabs at a time. Okay. And here, if I actually give the same process is actually being done, maybe since these labs are, I don't know, like not working now, I don't know. I'll show this later, maybe in the next. Hmm. So if we actually like take about like the Docker file, what it actually does is like it actually builds a what do I call a base mission node as a base mission, like node 18 as a base mission. Node 18 is a base mission is nothing but a mission which has node already installed. So node.js already installed. So that was the first session like that we did, like installing node.js in our server. Let's say not this, yes. So as we installed Node.js as this section, so once Node.js is installed, like it comes with like npm as well. Where is this? Yes. Okay. Okay. So like it comes with npm as well, and like this is where like that we did npm install, which gets actually a React scripts. And here like we are actually having a copy work directory slash app. What are we doing here inside container is like when you give from as node 18, so it actually gets image from Docker Hub. One second. So this is the image it gets actually. Oh, sorry. Yeah, this is the image it gets actually. From here, it fetches this image, a basic image, what do I call like a OS on a base. Like once you get the base image, it then it goes for. I'm gonna open it. Yeah. Mm, yeah. Once you get the base image, it creates work directory slash app. It's nothing but like it creates something like a new directory. Simply mkdir slash app. And then once that is done, like we are copying package.json and JSON files because these files actually have package.json files and package.json file. These files actually have the dependencies to build this complete app. Like whatever the app is written, so it has complete dependencies on this app. So that's why like copying these files are important. And then once the files are copied, we are actually giving npm install. npm install, like what it does, it installs all these packages that is required for us to build the app. So it does in container, and then we're copying complete code. So this complete folder is copied inside container, and then when npm run build is given, like it forms the build folder as I showed you. Like this is the new folder that is formed when I gave npm run build. So once npm run build is done, so it's actually in like slash app, because like our entire work is being done in a new directory slash app. So inside slash app slash build is our mission, but here we had named our mission like node 18 mission as build. So we are actually taking a new mission, and which the base image is Nginx, because since we deployed it in Nginx, so we are giving it like Nginx Alpine, and we are actually copying it from build. Build is nothing but this previous mission, that the previous container we would call, and from there like inside app Inside build, we have our like the new build folder, and we are actually deploying it in Nginx, and we are exposing our container port to 80. And like once container port 80 is done, like we are actually starting our app using Nginx. Like we are just starting Nginx minus the daemon off. Like we are not turning off Nginx. This command here, like cmd, like if you want to write this, like where we actually did this, it's simply mm, this command that we did, serve s minus s build. So these commands, if you want to like insert no don't want to have Nginx, so instead of like this line, so this line would be changing it something as like serve minus s build. So each command like will be in a different quotes. You understood how cmd is written, right? Yes.
Yes, Sagar. All right.
Yeah. And here the Docker file, we'll discuss on this Docker file. This from is nothing but a base image, as work directory is nothing but the like mkdir, it creates new directory, and copy whatever is there in your local. Because if you remember, like we are trying to have a dot is nothing but like a present directory. Whatever is there in this present directory, it's actually copying to there. So copy is that, and run is nothing but here, if you remember, I had given commands like npm install, npm run build. So these commands can be run inside container with run. So we're actually building this container the same way. And like instead of cmd and expose is nothing but I exposed this to port 3000 here. Like if I don't want to use Nginx, this is a new Docker file. Because here if you see, it actually ran on localhost 3000. So I'm exposing my container port to localhost 3000 here. And in the same way, like instead of cmd in the Docker file, you have entry point. Entry point is nothing but like a stricter startup. Let's say if you see in Windows, like when the app opens, you had to have like some few applications open by default. So that's where like we'll use entry point, where CMD and entry point work the same way. But if you have a lot of CMDs, let's say, like just like serve as build, mm, where is draw.io? Yeah, just like this. If you have another CMD that says like nginx minus g daemon f, nginx, and if you have the both CMDs in, let's say you could have a lot of CMDs within the Docker file itself, but while running container, what Docker takes is whatever is in the last line, like the latest CMD. The last line of CMD is only considered, and this would be nullified. Like the Docker does not consider this. But you want a sure startup kind of thing, like when the container starts and you want this command to for surely run, that's where, like instead of CMD, you will be using entry point command here. So that's the difference. And also, another thing is, let's say you have add, and add is nothing but here copy is generally your copy paste, but add is actually something which actually could download files from URLs. Let's say like if there is something like Linux, um, Apache May, sometimes like we want to download Apache Maven plugin something, let's say. Okay, these are actually a source like which downloads from URLs. um Maybe not this. Okay. Okay, I'm not getting the exact URLs. Let's take like this is something like a URL you want to download, like a Maven plugin URL you want to download inside container. So what we'll do, maybe the jar files. Okay. Yeah. So this is actually a URL that got downloaded. I want this plugin to be inside my container. So what I'll do is simply instead of having copy, what I'll do is I'll have this like add and then like this complete jar inside slash app directory or the directory I want to do. So this is a kind of benefit which add gives, which copy does not have. Okay, this actually moved inside this. This is actually something like add URL and the path you want to copy your file into, just like now a Maven plugin I downloaded. Same way, a Maven plugins or something you want to download or you want to extract a zip file. So that's when add is used. And also like this is environments, like if you have like something, a username or a password or things that you want to specify. So that's when like we'll use env here, environment. And then also let me go for back for this. Yeah. Once this is done, like you'll have the Docker file and like because the Docker images are formed because we gave a tag as React Docker. So you get a React Docker as the latest tag. And if you want to run this like image is nothing but think it like your OS, Windows OS. And for this Windows OS to run, you had to deploy it somewhere. And let's say like in your maybe your new laptop or something. So you want to deploy there and take this laptop something like a container and your OS, that disk or CD or pen drive, take it like an Docker image. So what I'm doing is I'm running this image, I mean like this OS in a container. So I'm actually naming my container name as something like React Docker container. And once I had run it, I had like two ports here, host port, because I had run this in AWS EC2. So host port is nothing but my AWS EC2 or your machine you could think. Maybe if I run this in my machine, in my machine only if I give the local host, like since I'll be running in my machine, so localhost 80 is actually tagged to container port 80. And here container port 80, it's because I had exposed this port to 80. But if you're not using Nginx and you're using just local build like this, your container port, okay, your container port will be 3000. So it would be 80 colon 3000. So instead of that, mm, yes. And this, like once Docker image is formed, you could actually, what do you say, deploy it in Docker Hub as well. Like Docker Hubs are nothing but your now, like let's say, like you have created a Docker images, and Docker images, like a Windows 7 OS or something like these OSs, like you need a place to store, and that's where like we would be using this as Docker Hub, or like you have AWS ECR, Harbor, and a lot of other container registries as well. So here, like once Docker image is formed, we are going to create our own Docker Hub account. Let's say you just have to click it Docker Hub, and when you click on sign in, like you'll be having clear, what do you say? You'll have your own Docker Hub account, which would be which could be created for free. And like inside your server, you'll just create something like Docker login, and based on that credentials, like you'll have open app and like you'll be able to authenticate. So the image that is formed inside my local, if I want to actually push it to Docker Hub, I'm going to use something like this Docker tag, like whatever local image tag name that I gave into the repo. Here, my repo, if I see, let's say it's actually Sagar Kakkala's world. That's the repo. As you could see, Sagar Kakkala's world slash whatever the tag name that I gave, and like I'll tag those and I'll just keep pushing those and post that. You'll have your image inside your Docker Hub. And like once this is formed, let's say now we could use something like a Docker compose files as well. Let's say like leave this. Let me go for this. Yeah. Here I had used Docker Compose file in one of our project, like where I'm going for AIOps and MLOps. And if you want to install Docker Desktop, you could go for Mac or your like Windows. You just click on Docker Desktop, and then if I open Docker Desktop now, and this actually shows things easier, pretty easy. One second, why is this not opening? Hmm. Actually, we faced this issue last time, right? Okay, I think I'm not able to show the demo in practical. Maybe like next I'll show. That's better. Maybe I'll just go on overview. So here, like once you had this Docker images formed, you could actually call those images in Docker Compose. In Docker Compose files, all you could do, let's say you're developing a three-tier application. You have front end, you have back end, you have DB. So all this, like you had already made Docker images, and for that, all you could do is in a single file. Like instead of now running like Docker run in like one file and Docker run for backend and then DB. So instead of that, you could have a single Docker Compose file, and I'm calling here for Kafka. So I'm calling Apache Kafka image, which is actually in Docker Hub, and I'm naming my container as Kafka. And these are host port to container port, as I said. So inside my container port, it's in 9092. And same way, I'm actually specifying like environment. It's nothing but the env. So this is one, let's say like you could take this as like a front end application and Kafka UI. And unless this image is built, you cannot build this because like we had added depends on, and we have volumes as well. Like here I had not specified any volume. We'll discuss about Docker volume in next sessions, like because of time constraint. And once you have like Docker Compose file, you'll have like Docker Compose app minus D. Minus D is nothing but a detached mode, and if you had not given this, you'll not be able to use your terminal after. So once I had given this, so it formed both Kafka and Kafka UI. Like this is how it looks in Docker desktop. And once that is done, and if you know, and you'll be able to even easily see like access from Docker desktop. And like this is something like you could stop the containers and you could even delete these containers from here without using commands. And yes, I think, yes. And like once you don't need the application anymore, let's say like you have that single three tier application and you don't need that application anymore. You could just give like Docker Compose down minus V, and like this actually deletes your replications, including if it forms any volumes that's there. So I was not able to show the demo clearly, but uh, you guys able to understand theory, right? Because of time constraint, I went on only an overview. We'll actually do it in practical in next sessions, while we'll discuss about like Docker volumes and Docker networking as well. Yes, clear?
Yeah, clear, sir.
Yeah, it's clear.
Let me know if you guys had any queries till this. Okay,
Mm,
let me stop sharing. Let me stop recording as well.